Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome in, everybody. It is a Wednesday edition of Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, glad to be here with you on this Wednesday edition. We have plenty coming up on the show today. Opportunities to win prizes. We've got a sneak peek opening of the Hunger Games. What is that, tomorrow? We've got to get you some tickets to that thing. So we'll do a couple pairs of those giveaways. We've got some HTO to give away. It's all available for you on the IHOP hotline, which is at 869-1240. IHOP, where guests can try the home-style turkey and stuffing melt, a deliciously comforting melt with roast turkey, mayo, grilled onions, cornbread stuffing, mixed berry topping, 4-cheese blend, griddled with multi-grain bread, and served with turkey gravy and a choice of side. That's a mouthful, literally and figuratively there, Tommy. But we have that for you. Jad Chambers driving this ship for you. Again, I'm Jacob Albracht alongside Tommy Castor. Glad to be with you on this Sports Daily. The morning after a late basketball game that we definitely will talk about today between KU and Kentucky. Just a ton of fun. Love the Champions Classic. We'll get into that. We'll begin to look ahead at the Sunflower Showdown. Some changes apparently to tiebreaker rules in Big 12 football that will certainly impact the two schools that we follow ahead of the Sunflower Showdown. So we'll get into that. Just a lot there today. We'll continue to get ready for the Chiefs Monday Night Football game as well. Major injury in the NFL. Tommy, how are you?
I'm tired. I want to write a petition to at some point have the Champions Classic, the KU game and the Champions Classic be the early game for once.
No way.
I feel like every year it's the late game, and God, I'm tired. And you know, when you've got little kids, you know, and then you're staying up until 11:30 to finish the game. It's a late night.
I'm not even home from work by 6 o'clock when those games tip. I don't want that. We got to have, no way. No. We've got to have the later game. I didn't mind it. I mean, I'm up kind of late anyway. I'm a night owl. But that was pretty late. That was pretty late for a basketball game. It was awesome, though. It was a great game. I didn't know how it was going to end up. I will say, I think maybe my biggest takeaway is Kentucky was way better than I thought they would be at this point, and they're going to be really stinking good by the end of the year, especially when they get their bigs back. They impressed me a ton. Man, they are fast and explosive. It was worrying me in the beginning. I'm like, of all these things we know about this KU team and are they athletic enough? That thought did creep into my head, right? They're skilled. They're insanely skilled, and they'll play good defense, but how athletic are they? And I don't know the answer to that, but I think they obviously can overcome it because Kentucky was giving them everything they had, and KU was just kind of, cruising right through and almost won. It felt like maybe through attrition last night, but man, what a great fun game. And I know it wasn't the prettiest game, but it was a lot of fun, I thought.
Yeah, it was high-level basketball between two really, really good programs. And, I've cautioned it before, and I'm trying to talk myself out of it, of overreacting to a college basketball game in the month of November. But it's really difficult because of the performance from both teams to not overreact about, how they both played. I'm with you. I think Kentucky is really good. They're really, really athletic. They shot the ball out of their minds, especially in the first half. Where it looked like Kansas was going to be in a big hole that they weren't going to be able to climb out of. But of course, Bill Self's second half adjustments are legendary. Kansas got back in the game. You mentioned the Jayhawks winning almost by attrition. I don't disagree with you because I think that the veteran presence of Kansas won out over the raw athleticism of Kentucky. The Wildcats looked a little tired towards the end of the game. You're dealing with really young players with Kentucky that, played really well to start the game and then I think got tired towards the end, and that allowed Kansas to get back into it. But man, some individual performances that we've not seen for the Jayhawks in over a decade. And we're not talking about the Jayhawks playing a team like North Carolina Central or Manhattan. We're talking about them playing Kentucky in the Champions Classic. Hunter Dickinson, 27 points, 21 rebounds. The first time a Kansas player has done that, 20 and 20, since Thomas Robinson back in 2012. Kevin McCullough with a triple-double. That hasn't happened since Jeff Withey in 2011. And then, of course, DeJuan Harris adding his 23 points, which was incredible. So some really great individual performances kept the Jayhawks in the game late, and they were able to pull away and get the win.
And they were navigating fouls in the game too. I think that's probably the lesson to the rest of the country. And I will be stunned if we see a team dare DeJuan Harris to shoot like that again. I think he would have gone 10 for 11. Yeah. Like he wasn't missing. And they just kept. He looked okay. He almost begged him. Like, are you going to defend me? Okay. Yeah. I'll take the shot then. Like you almost have to talk him into it.
Right. He looked like Steph Curry out there. I mean, with the shots that he was taking. And, I felt like, and you're exactly right, Kentucky's game plan coming in was to give DeJuan Harris his space and dare him to shoot the basketball.
Well, because he had taken he was averaging 1 point a game. Yeah. Like he wasn't shooting. And so they're like, well, if he's not going to shoot, let's focus in. And so that was good to see from him. I don't think that's what he wants to do. I think he's good at it, but for whatever reason, it's not his game and he wants to control things in other ways. It was interesting because it's what it points out is like it's going to be really, really difficult to beat Kansas this year because they just are so experienced. And you just think about like all the minutes between McCullough and Adams and Dickinson and Harris. Like nothing's ever going to get too big for them. And no, I don't think this is. I kept trying to think last night as I'm watching Harris and Dickinson. It's not as explosive as Doak and Dot, and I still would probably take Doak and Dot and we'll give it a little time. They obviously had more time together than these two will have, but it's very different with Harris and Dickinson. Like it's totally different. I mean, Harris was forcing him the ball at times. And you get why, right? It was clear. And I thought this would be a huge Hunter Dickinson game. I bet that because Kentucky didn't have their bigs, it was clear what Kansas needed to do. And that's what they did. And Kentucky wasn't going to shoot the lights out the whole game. And if they were, it was like Kansas was willing to accept that. Like if they shoot like that the whole game, we're not going to beat them anyway. And their attrition won out. I'll tell you this too. This 3 games into the season, when I'm looking at the roster, that 5th starter for me isn't Timberlake. No. I thought that the team looked significantly better with Elmarco Jackson, who is coming on quickly, I think. And his stat line's not going to point out. But you know what he did? He made his free throws late. And I thought, like, in very limited minutes, and it was such a short period of time, but I think Jamari McDowell is going to be able to be a factor too. I like his game a little bit, and it was just a tiny amount of time. But Elmarco Jackson looks pretty good, and I think that he's going to ultimately, and he was last night. Timberlake will just need to be a specialist, like just an absolute specialist, because I think there is a definite line in, like, I don't know if it's athleticism. I don't even know what it is, but I can see you nodding. So I think you agree. Like there's something different when he's out there.
Yeah. And look, I know that individual plus minuses don't tell the whole story. It's hard to put a whole lot of stake into that, but Nick Timberlake was -20 when he was on the court. I mean, he was by far the worst player for the Jayhawks, and the team overall looked worse when he was out there. And I don't know if that's a matter of being on the big stage and not being ready for it. Although Elmarco Jackson, that was his first time on the big stage, and Jamari McDowell, they played pretty well. So, I mean, I'm with you. I don't think that Nick Timberlake has come into his own quite yet. And really, I was going to say my only concern, I guess, coming out of the game is that, Bill Self rode his starters. And in the first half, that was big for Kentucky. Kentucky had a lot of bench points and Kansas had none. In fact, they only finished with 4 bench points overall. The Jayhawks did. So, I don't know if you can classify that as a concern right now by saying that, they don't really have a whole lot of bench production. But I think once you get into the grind of the Big 12, we talked about Bill Self's tight rotations all the time, whether it's a 7-man rotation or what that looks like. You want to see a little bit more production from the guys coming off the bench. Johnny Furphy had no points in 12 minutes of action. He's still getting kind of up to speed. There's a couple of guys that I think it's going to take a little bit of time for them to get their feet underneath them. But that was the only thing coming out of the game last night that I thought, I don't love that, was just the lack of bench production.
I don't know that they're going to need it.
They will.
That was
they
a
will
game
in conference play. They will in conference play for sure.
Maybe that was a game they got into some foul trouble and they played through it. He's going to give these older players the ability, I think, to do that. And it just like you trust them. And there is a difference, I think, for a coach and just trusting that your guys know what you. And KJ Adams made a bad play there to foul out. That was a mistake. But other than that, I thought they played through it just fine. Yeah, they're going to need depth because you never know what happens in a season. But I do think he's going to give them long leash in a game. And I think they're going to play tons of minutes. And, is it enough to have, Furphy, Timberlake, Brown, McDowell? Like, it's not the best bench they've ever had. We'll just put it that way. But, those guys need room to grow too because they're all new to the program essentially.
Yeah,
so maybe it gets better. I don't know.
It's not the best bench they've ever had, but I think that there's a decent ceiling with the bench, especially with Johnny Furphy. I think that he can grow into the role that, he's meant to play on this team. You mentioned KJ Adams. We talked about Dickinson. We talked about Harris. We talked about McCullough. And I know Adams fouled out, but he shot the ball great. I mean, he was 8 of 11 from the field. And his energy level, I thought, was off the charts in the game, and had a couple of really athletic plays that were crucial and important, throughout the game for the Jayhawks. And, you mentioned how DeJuan Harris forced the ball to Hunter Dickinson. And I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that inside out game that, we know the Jayhawks love to do. We know Bill Self loves to have a big time post player and play inside out. They were able to do that. And I thought that probably the most crucial play of the game was that late 3 from Dickinson before halftime that cut the Kentucky lead down to 8, got it within single digits. I mean, an 8-point lead at halftime versus an 11-point lead at halftime. I think there's a world of difference between those two. I thought that was an incredibly crucial and important play for Dickinson, and the fact that they were able, and what I love about Hunter Dickinson and why everybody wanted him is his versatility, what he can do down in the post, and he can step out and shoot the 3. I mean, that's a big time weapon. Of course it is for Kansas.
It's not just that. I mean, Bill Self is, to me, the best coach of the true center and in the college game. And Dickinson, I think one of the bigger reasons Dickinson chose Kansas is to elevate his game a bit. And I think that he will. I think we're going to see the best of him. Their bench is not going to be the best bench they've ever had, but if health holds true, they've never needed a bench less, because at what point in any game are you going to feel like you need Dickinson, Adams, Harris, or McCullough not on the floor, right? They really need to rotate one other guy out unless there's extenuating circumstances, but those guys just don't need to come off the floor. And not all star players are that way, right? Like some star players you have to protect a little bit. Not those guys. Like they're all really, really, really smart, savvy basketball players. And that's what played through last night. Kansas did not play its best game last night. And a part of that had to do with Kentucky. Again, I thought, honestly, as I sat there and watched that game, no matter what the outcome was going to be, my thing was Kentucky's really good, and they're going to be really good. I think that's probably a Final Four type team at minimum. They're very good. And we've seen Kentucky over the years early in the season. That's the best early I can remember them looking, as far as just playing the game. They weren't just out there relying on athleticism or anything else, but man, they are explosive. Holy moly, they're explosive.
Yeah.
But I think that they're really good. And I think Kansas did not have its best game and still found a way. Again, I call it attrition because I felt like that's what it was as I was watching it. Kentucky would make its run, and they did that, 3 different times, And then Kansas just slowly but surely, like just keeps chipping away and getting into it. But it was a lot of fun. Man, I love these early great games, and Kansas is going to get a ton of them here out of the gates this year.
Yeah, and we've had so many conversations over the last few weeks about, is there concern with the Jayhawks and the way that they looked in the exhibition and all of that stuff. And like I know I've been pretty clear on it. I was never concerned, and it's because of the experience level of the guys that are on the team, right? And it's the fact that they, have all of this wisdom and knowledge, and they've been there before. They know what they're doing. I thought it might take a minute for Harris and Dickinson to gel together, but I think it's there. I think it's completely done. And Dickinson even talked about it post game about, having the best point guard in America in his mind, feeding him the ball. And so I think that knowing all of that combined and it's difficult to gauge, and we've talked about it before, difficult to gauge where a team is at when they're playing opening games against North Carolina Central and Manhattan. But when you go into Chicago in the United Center against a Kentucky team, and you can throw the rankings out the window, I'm with you. I mean, Kentucky, I think, was ranked 16th. They're better than 16th in the country for
They
sure.
will be better.
They
Whether
will
they
be.
are now or not, they will be.
The rankings where they had Kentucky, they don't ultimately matter. That's a much better team with a ton of talent and athleticism and explosiveness. Dillingham was great. Reeves was great. I mean, they've got some young players that are going to be incredible for John Calipari. And so I'm a believer in them after the game last night. But knowing what the Jayhawks were able to do against that kind of talent and that kind of explosiveness, if anybody had any kind of lingering concerns about Kansas, I think you can put those to bed. It's a long season. And again, it's hard to overreact. You don't want to overreact to a game in November, but that's as good of a showing that you can have in an early season game because you take those body blows, you're down by double digits in the second half. You absorb them, and then you come back into it. You let your veteran presence ride you the rest of the way.
I think those are the kinds of games too for a team like this that you remember when you're playing in the tournament,
Yeah.
right? Like we were down double digits to Kentucky in the second half, and we still were able to come back. We have to just stick to what we do. So you're going to get and they're going to continue to play games like that. Kansas isn't going to win all its games. I don't know if they fall off the number 1 seed at any point this year. They probably do at some point. It is going to be really difficult to beat them because of that. And that's always in the back of their head, and that's a good start. So the Maui Invitational is up next. They open with Chaminade on Saturday, and then that's
Monday.
that's Monday. And then you get the next game, and then they play consecutive days. So you could potentially see Marquette, who's a top 5 team, Purdue, who's a top 5 team, and Tennessee, who's a top 5 team. Those are all in there. You could get 2 of those games. And the other teams, if they don't get those games, are UCLA, Gonzaga, and Syracuse. I mean, it's an incredible Maui Invitational this year. So Kansas will get just some really high-quality games coming up, and they get a little break here to get ready for it, get out there, travel out there. That'll be an emotional tournament, too, because of everything that's gone on with Maui. But what a fun game last night. Again, I know I was talking to some other Jayhawk fans. They didn't think it was quite as fun. But they got it done. I did think it was fun. I thought like that getting tested like that and still coming through with it was just perfect for KU yesterday. So, they got it done. Everything's good to go. And Kansas gets to now go on to that Maui Invitational. The other big news from yesterday is this Big 12 football rules change. Boy, I got to tell you, like, this stinks. Like, something smells here. We're going to talk about it. The tiebreakers have been changed, right? They changed it. We'll tell you what happened and what it means moving forward when we return on Sports Daily.
H.
Boy, I'd love to be a fly on the wall and hear the conversation between the Big 12 and Gene Taylor that's apparently coming today. Big 12 changes its tiebreaker rules. That's a big story here. We're going to get to that in just a second. Do want to open it up, though, to a pair of movie tickets, a sneak peek opening of The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Let's go first caller right now. You can watch it tomorrow at Boulevard Theaters in Town West Square. Just call into the IHOP hotline, 869-1240 right now. Jad will get us a winner to our first caller. We'll get you some movie tickets to go check that out. All right, Tommy, Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here. It is Sports Daily. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching on our stream. So yesterday was strange. All of a sudden, we get some reporting from different places that the Big 12 is seeking to, quote unquote, clarify the tiebreaker rules that basically would put Oklahoma State in if Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Oklahoma are tied. Now, let me say that that's the right thing to do, but that's not what the rule was and the way the rule was written. So they're not clarifying here. They're changing the rule. There's not clarifying when you literally change what the rule says. And the rule says that Kansas State would have made it in because there was no, clear tiebreaker between all three of them. Oklahoma State beat them both. If all three are tied, Oklahoma State should be in. That is the way that it should be. That's not the way that it was, though, and that's not good for Kansas State. They're going to be the most angry here. It was weird the way it came out, right? It was sort of coming out through a variety of reporters. It's the right thing to do, Tommy. It's the right rule. I don't know if it's the right thing to do. I don't think that it is. And it's certainly not the right way to do it.
Yeah, what an absolute crock of garbage this is from the Big 12. I mean, this is absolutely terrible. Now, moving forward, did the rule become more correct? Sure, absolutely. Did they do the right thing in the long term? Yes, I think so. But you can't clarify it right now in the middle of the season. Like, take your medicine, say this was written poorly, and we will make changes after the season. The fact that they can just go ahead and arbitrarily adjust and modify the rules, I think is absolutely ridiculous. And if I'm Gene Taylor, I'm furious right now, and I'm looking forward to hearing the way that conversation goes. And if you're confused or if you haven't heard about the way the rule is actually written with the Big 12, let me read it to you very quickly. It's very short. So here's the tiebreaker for at least 3 teams tied, which is the way that it stands right now and the way that it could be. Head-to-head, best cumulative win percentage in games among the tied teams. If not every tied team has played each other, go to step 2. I don't know what that means. I don't think anybody knows what that means. And I think that's where
it means that Kansas State and Oklahoma haven't played, so they're skipping that step.
Exactly. But the way that it was written, it's so poorly written. And, I think a lot of people are wondering, like, how come this hasn't been an issue before? Well, before you had a true round robin schedule with the Big 12 teams. There were 10 teams in the conference. Every team played each other every single year. So every team had head-to-head against everybody else. So you could really establish a tiebreaker. It's different now this season with OU and Texas still in the conference and the 4 new teams that joined. Not every team plays every team throughout the entire season. So you've got this confusion with not every team having a head-to-head matchup against another team. So I understand how convoluted and confusing this is. You and I have gone back and forth multiple times over text. Like, do you understand this?
Well, no, that's what I was going to say. What's so funny about this is as this tiebreaker was sort of rolling itself out, I was like, let's wait for somebody else to decipher it because I don't know what this means. And so as they did, and we got clarity, and it was like, okay, well, this is actually good for K-State. It was like, all right. They don't control their own destiny completely, and they still don't. And
Right.
this honestly, this could still sort itself out. Like, it's not like they still have to play the last 2 games, and all 3 of those teams would have to win all of those games for this to even be a factor anyway. But that is not unlikely. It's probably more likely than unlikely. In fact, they'll all be favored in those games that they play, I would guess. So it's just I'm glad they're getting for the future. I'm glad that they're coming to clarity because we're
For
going
the
to have an
future,
uneven
yes.
schedule. You know, but what it tells me too is like because you're going to expand the conference further. What's the number of teams? What are we getting to in the Big 12? 16,
Yeah, there'll be
18.
16 total. Yeah.
So 16, like now more than ever, you need to split the league into divisions.
Yep.
And you need to get your divisional winners into the title game. And you know, these uneven schedules, you're going to have this kind of a mess if you just let it all be in one jumble. This is more likely to become a problem to where you could put everybody in a division, keep all your regional, and they're not going to do this, right? We already have seen the schedule now, but they should have done it because you could have kept all the Western teams playing each other, kept those traditions alive, right? Vice versa, and then played a couple crossovers every year or played a better non-con. I mean, whatever you want to do, but you could have, that would have been the better answer because that would have clarified and made some of this a whole lot easier. But it's not going to get easier. It's going to get harder,
right,
to sort through this.
And I don't have any issue with them clarifying or modifying. That's really what it is. They're modifying the rule. They're not clarifying.
Well, they're changing it. They can say whatever they want. They're changing the rule.
Exactly. I don't have a problem with them doing that for the future. I have a problem with them doing it right now as we're almost done with the regular season and it ends up like benefiting one team more than it does another. Now, don't get me wrong, like Oklahoma State, and I know that Oklahoma State fans are probably pretty happy about this ruling because they beat OU in Bedlam and they beat Kansas State. So they've got head-to-head victories against both of those teams. So I understand that they're thinking that they're entitled to playing in a Big 12 title game because they beat both OU and Kansas State. I understand all of that, but that's not the way the rule was written. It's not. Anybody that can read that rule originally, the way it was originally written, I think interprets it as, okay, well, Kansas State probably wins that tiebreaker. That's the way you and I interpreted it with the way that it was
through
written.
others.
Well,
through other
but,
people.
But I think that's the way that they kind of like across the landscape was interpreted. And I don't know if this was the athletic director at Oklahoma State calling the Big 12 and saying, what are you doing here? Like, can we talk? I don't exactly know how that happened.
It would have been ridiculous for Oklahoma State to have beaten the two teams they were tied with and not
get it. And I sympathize with that. But that's not the way the rule was written. You can't change
the rule in the middle of the season. It's like when you're in a fantasy football league and the commissioner goes through after the fact and tries to say, you know what, guys, I think we're going to have touchdowns count for 6 points instead of 4.
Right.
Like, wait, hang on a minute. You can't do that in the middle of the season. Let's do it next year. That's fine, but you can't do it now. It's ridiculous. We'll see how Gene Taylor goes. I cannot wait for Gene Taylor to have that conversation, and I can't wait to hear from. Apparently, Fitz is going to be all in a tiff tomorrow with us here to go through this because he's mad about the timing. He's, Gene Taylor was locked up with the CFP when they made this decision. Like it'll be entertaining to have our K-State insider Tim Fitzgerald.
The other thing I want to point out with all of this is that if I'm OU, I can't wait to get out of the Big 12. And this is like obviously another piece of ammunition for them to say we got to get out of this conference, and they are, right? Like they're almost done, but like we can't wait to get out of here because the Big 12 is arbitrarily changing, modifying the rules. And like you said, they can classify it as quote unquote clarifying all they want. It's not a clarification.
They changed it.
They're changing it.
They changed it. Yeah, they are. And look, we give Yormark, we blow plenty of smoke up his skirt all the time. So he can take some criticism on this one. This is just bad timing. You can't do this. You have to eat. And you know what? Anything that keeps it from being an Oklahoma-Texas Big 12 championship game is going to be better. Like that's the worst case scenario for the league is to let those two play each other in the Big 12 championship on their way out the door. Like that's not good. And this doesn't really affect that, but like, I don't know, like, what are we doing here? And it sucks for us because we follow K-State obviously. And again, this is all assuming that everything goes the way it's supposed to. I'll bet you this on November 15th, like as we look at this, that's not going to happen anyway. This league has been too crazy this year. Something weird's going to happen, and those three teams aren't going to end up with the same record at the end of the year. It just doesn't feel like that's likely considering everything. Now, is it the most probable as far as like odds and statistics? And yes, it is, I think. I think all three of those teams are going to be favored in the rest of their games. but the likelihood of it happening are still low. It's like every year, Tommy, when we go to the CFP and we start freaking out right now or in these early weeks of the CFP rankings, by the end of it, it's much clearer, and you're usually just like arguing about one team, usually, right? Right now, it looks like you're like, oh, no, what are we going to do with the CFP? Well, let them finish playing their games, and then let's see what happens. Most of the time, a lot of that gets worked out. I suspect that the same thing's going to happen here. A lot of it will get worked out. But, boy, if it doesn't, and you get that three-way tiebreaker now, it's going to be a mess, and it's going to be one that K-State doesn't forget for a while because there's money involved. There's a lot involved. K-State's the big loser here if that happens. Yep. I mean, that's why it's getting so much. I'm sure in Stillwater today, they're like, thank you for making the rule correct, right? Like, this was so ridiculous. And they would have been the ones upset, like, what are we doing if we're not being rewarded for winning the games against the team?
I get that. I sympathize with Oklahoma State. They beat both of the teams that they played against that they're tied with, right? I get all of that. I understand their position. It's not about them, and it's not about that. It's about the way that the rule is written. And the Big 12, I don't know if they just like suddenly discovered that the rule was written poorly, or if they thought, okay, it's not very well written, but we're probably not going to ever have this situation, which they probably should have had more foresight to understand that that might be likely. But in week 12, you can't just go in and change the rule. Do it after the season and make sure that it's clear and concise and ready to go for future seasons so it doesn't happen again. Because now the Big 12 is in a position where you don't change the rule, somebody's mad. You do change the rule and somebody's mad. And I mean, really, honestly, the only true way, you mentioned the divisions moving forward, the only true way
that won't happen though
is to have I know, but what I'm saying is that the only true way to avoid this is to have a legitimate round robin, but you can't do that unless you've got divisions, and the Big 12 isn't going to do that. So they've opened the door for these convoluted tiebreakers to be maybe the norm moving forward. So you've got to have a clear path and a clear tiebreaker rule to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
And they will moving forward. But, look, I think that if you're a K-State fan today, like, clear your anger and understand that you have to win the rest of your games to have a chance at any scenario. And then you get back to what we thought it was, right? When I came in after the game last weekend, I thought, okay, K-State's got to win out and have Oklahoma and Oklahoma State each lose a game. That's what I thought it was going to be anyway. And then everyone kept coming up with this rule, and they're like, no, actually, K-State gets in. And I'm like, wait, what? How? How is that possible? Because here's what I assumed would be a tiebreaker, either head-to-head, right? Or if it's not there, best, common opponent, maybe record, or best team like Texas. So, and KU lose or K-State loses all those tiebreakers. So they were just like, there was this weird scenario that existed, but it was there in the rules, within the rules. So now we have to.
It's like a third grader wrote those rules, and I don't know if maybe nobody proofread it. I'm not sure. Very poorly written. So I'm on board. I think everybody is on board that it needed to be clarified in the future. I just think that they're upset about the timing, and I get it.
Well, sure, and it is bad timing. You can't change the rules in the middle of a season, which they did. They can say clarify all they want. That's a very selected word on purpose, but it's not clarifying, it's changing. And that's the problem. When it's just tricky because the change was very needed, but timing's not good. Congratulations to Bobby for winning our Hunger Games tickets. We'll give away another pair of those in the next hour. On the way out this hour, though, let's do some HTO. We'll get you. Let's do a couple of coffee cards today. If you haven't tried the HTO Brew House, you can get all kinds of iced hot coffee, espresso drinks. These will be good for the Wichita East location or the location in Derby. Of course, it's Thanksgiving season. You can pre-order your Thanksgiving gallons of iced tea at any of the HTO locations. For until Sunday, you can get a special rate, 4 gallons for $19.99. That is a discount. You pick it up either the Tuesday or Wednesday before Thanksgiving. But this giveaway right now for some free coffee, free brew house. We'll do it. First caller during the break, 869-1240. Jad will get us a winner. More movie tickets next hour. We'll be back with more Sports Daily right after this. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Congratulations to Alex for winning some HTO Brewhouse coffee. Can't get enough Chiefs coverage. Check out New Heights with Jason and Travis Kelce, free on the Odyssey app. Follow it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Or Travis Kelce Taylor Swift news. I still can't believe you didn't let me know, Tommy, that all this stuff was happening over the weekend in Argentina.
Look, I didn't realize that I was in charge of giving you all of that information. I thought you could find
gossip
it yourself.
News, yes.
Why am I the source
absolutely.
for that, though? I didn't know that that was my job.
Did you know that it's happening?
Well, yeah, I knew it was happening. I saw it on social media.
There you go. You have to understand, for the person sitting on the other side of your microphone here, I got nothing when it comes to that stuff. Like, I have been passed up a long time ago with what's cool and hip and
you
trendy.
Think I know what's cool and hip and trendy?
I do. I think you're keeping up with this stuff better than I am. I don't follow this stuff. Like, I'm not as active in the world of, what's happening out there.
Neither am I.
Everything.
I don't know why you think all of a sudden I'm this beacon of celebrity gossip. Look at me. Do I look like I know what's going on with Taylor Swift?
Did you know this was happening?
Yes, I saw that this particular thing was happening, but I didn't realize.
Have you missed anything? Have you missed any of the news?
I'm sure I've missed something. I don't know.
I don't know. And it's not like a knock. Like, it's a fault of mine. Like, it's all I can do to keep up with sports and everything else going on in life.
Look,
so now that
I'm telling you, though, if you are relying on me to be your source of information, I'm going to
also
let
have
you
an
down.
informant. I highly doubt your wife is going to let you slip through the cracks on the latest Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce gossip. Correct? Like, I know that.
Yeah, okay.
I know that I'm going to get my fill when I get to work. One of my co-anchors, Rachel Hackbarth, is a total Swiftie. One of our meteorologists is a Swiftie. So I get it once I get to work. But like, all this stuff that happened, I didn't know about it until 3:55 on Monday afternoon. I had no clue.
I want to clarify really quick. You said one of your meteorologists is Ross Jansen, a major Swiftie. Is that what you're saying?
No, he's not. It's not Ross. It's Adrian Campa, who's much younger.
Gotcha.
And of the generation to be a big Taylor Swift fan. And so
I
is
would have loved
Rachel.
if Ross was a major Swiftie.
He's not. In fact, he joins in with us as we, kind of poke fun at, but we're old. Ross is as old as we are. So it's like we've all been passed by. Like, we're not hip to the times of what that even means to be a Swiftie. And I think Taylor Swift is cool. And like, I think her songs are kind of cool, at least the ones I've heard. And maybe a younger version of myself could have found himself being a Swiftie. It's totally possible. Like, I think Miley Cyrus is that cool. Now, I don't know what all goes into being a Swiftie. Like, right. I still don't even know what that means. But, I know there's a lot of them around the station. And when this first story first came out, like, you'd hear a lot of people be like, oh yeah, I'm a Swiftie. And I'm like, what's happening? How many of you are there? And there's lots. So I've learned that.
And in a previous life, I was very involved in music radio. That was what I did for a long time. And,
totally.
I've kind of distanced myself away from that a little bit as I've gotten older. And honestly, like, I don't follow Taylor like I used to. And, 8 or 9 or 10 years ago, like, I was pretty into it because that was my day-to-day job. But I again, like, the fact that, like, I don't have that inside knowledge like I used to in that world, I'm going to let you down if you lean on me for celebrity gossip.
Not on this story, you're not, because the way that people follow the Chiefs on Twitter or whatever, there's no chance that because you scroll it more than I do. I'm on there when I'm working actively so that I see the things that are happening. But I very much rely on other people sending me information, like through text, whether it's something like, I get a lot of my news from people texting me things that I don't see because I'm not actively on there all the time. I can't be. I don't have time. And so when I'm at work, I have it open when I'm at work. But like on a Sunday afternoon, I didn't have it open. I don't know what's happening. Like, I'm just watching games and cooking food or whatever else we're doing. So I need help. And I know that your wife is not going to let you miss any bit of gossip when it comes to Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, or probably a lot of other, celebrity information. My wife, if she did, and she had seen this too. And I asked her, I'm like, did you not see all this stuff? She's like, oh yeah, I saw it, but I'm annoyed by it now. I'm like, okay, well, you're out. You're not going to be my source of information. Thanks for nothing.
I mean, now that I know that there's this expectation that you have of me, like I'm going to actually have to try to live up to that expectation.
Well, we already do that with sports stories to make sure all day. It's like, did you see this? Did you see this? This pops through. I don't get, and I don't know how, like, what's so amazing about this recent development is that I didn't see it, because I do, like, at times pop on there on the weekends, but how that went through with how, Chiefs coverage is, anybody does, everybody has to react, right, to anything that happens with the Chiefs. How did that slip through? Like, I'm telling you, until 3:55 Monday afternoon, when I walked out into the studio, I had no idea that there was the kiss and he was hanging out with her dad and all this stuff. And I'm like, wait, what happened? Over my head.
She changed the lyrics to one of her songs to reference the Chiefs.
I saw that now. I don't know what that means. I mean, I'm having fun with it. I don't care anymore. Like, the part of me caring is it was gone probably a week earlier than I predicted, which was I thought it would go on for about 3 weeks before, most of us would be tired of it. It was about 2 for me, where I was like, yeah, this is fun. I'm having fun with it. I hope for the best for them, but I don't really care anymore. But that, like, I'm surprised. I'm just like, I'm a little hurt that nobody told me that any of that stuff happened until 24 hours after the fact.
All right, lesson learned. I mean, I guess from now on, I'll just blow up your phone with updates on what's happening with Taylor Swift.
Or yeah, I mean, anything of relevance to us here. I mean, if it's not within a game, I probably didn't see it. That's my own fault. I get it, but it is what it is. You can, again, that got brought up. That wasn't intention of where we were going. I was going to go in there and talk about Deshaun Watson and his shoulder injury. We'll do that when we come back and start off the next hour. Congratulations again to Alex and Bobby for winning our giveaways. We'll give away another pair of movie tickets in the second hour. We'll take your calls on that IHOP hotline. Lots of fun stuff coming up today. We can revisit KU Kentucky and an incredible sort of big first spotlight game of the college basketball season for us around here. We can look ahead for Wichita State. They start a tournament tomorrow afternoon, so we can talk about that a little bit. A lot to come in hour number 2. It's Albracht and Castor. Jad Chambers producing. This is Sports Daily.
Laugh Out Loud Mornings with Bob and Tom on 97.5 and 1240 KFH, Wichita's most listened to sports radio. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The fall holiday is here, and we've been busy perfecting our new home-style turkey and stuffing meals. That's right, all the warm, comforting nostalgia of turkey and stuffing. None of the dishes to clean up afterwards. And the best part is, if your kid wants pancakes instead, we have those too. Celebrate with a whole family with Kids Eat Free every day from 4 to 10 p.m. for a limited time. Only at IHOP. Let's put a smile on your plate. Download the app and earn free food with every order. Account sign-up required. For a limited time only. 1 free kids entree with each full-priced adult entree purchase. Dine-in only. Restrictions apply.
Introducing the all-new Apex family, infused with sustainable materials and crafted for durability to keep you moving and safe. Available now at Red Wing Shoes. Great for indoor and outdoor jobs in construction and manufacturing, Apex boots are purpose-built for on-the-job performance. Apex exists to help workers evolve to meet the demands of their jobs. Stop in and see us today. Red Wing Shoes, 6600 West Kellogg, and visit us on social media.
That's Mike saying good morning. It's the best he can do right now. Yeah, not a cloud in the sky. What Mike could use is a fresh start. And Irish Spring Body Wash. The fresh scent of Irish Spring and those sensational Irish Spring suds are just the reset Mike needs. Now he's ready
to go to work.
It's Sunday. Irish Spring. When the spring hits you, you're ready. Pick up Irish Spring today.
Dell's Black Friday event is their biggest sale of the year. Shop limited time deals on laptops like the stylish, innovative XPS 13, engineered to do it all on the Intel Evo platform. Plus, save big on ultra-sharp monitors and top brand accessories. It's the perfect time to upgrade any home, business, or gaming setup powered by Intel Core processors. Shop now at Dell.com/deals to take advantage of huge savings and free shipping. Again, that's Dell.com/deals.
Hey Shockers fans, D&D Advertising has the new 2023-24 basketball schedules ready, and you can pick them up at these fine business locations: Lee Reed Engraving, Murphy Tractor and Equipment, Murdoch Companies, Atlas Electric LLC, Family Health and Rehab, Johnson's Legacy Landscaping, trailers and more for the long haul. Enhanced Wellness, Peach and Real Estate Group, Armstrong Services, Action Heating and Cooling, Kansas Tree Experts, First Street Pump Water Well, LGC Hospitality, Sedgwick Plaza, Roadrunner Mexican Fast Food, Full Armor Home Inspection, A Doggy Boutique, and Forge ICT. Please patronize these fine businesses as they are an asset to our community. D&D Advertising Enterprises is not licensed, affiliated with, or endorsed by any university, sports institution, or program unless specifically stated in writing. No proceeds from any of the funds collected for your ad will be given to any educational institution or sports team. We are not responsible for any schedule changes made after printing.
Friend, is your pavement broken down, worn out, potholed, and buckled? Are those once clear lines now fuzzy and faded? Is what once was smooth and solid now lined and cracked? Well, friend, there is an answer, and it's not too late. You must be paved. Yes, call this number, 316-990-5855, and you too shall be paved. Remember, many are broken, but only those who are paved will be made whole once more. Call 316-990-5855 or visit pavethewayusa.com.
Pave the way. I'm going after the deals at Crazy J's.
Crazy J's Furniture and Sleep Shop is Wichita's favorite furniture store since 1997, offering a wide selection of quality home furnishings and bedding at the best prices in town, guaranteed. Living room, dining room, and bedroom groups, bunk beds, day bed, futons, mattress sets, and so much more. In stock and ready for delivery or pickup today. Hassle-free, no credit needed financing available. Open 7 days a week at 1026 South Oliver and 604 North Tyler, or online at crazyjsbedshop.com.
Come and enjoy a free birthday boil at Hook and Reel. Valid only with a minimum of a 2 entree purchase, proof of ID, and also valid 3 days before and 3 days after birthday. Located in Town East Parking Lot, East Kellogg.
Truck owners, Toppers Plus Truck Accessories has a new expanded showroom at 333 North West Street, stocked with the tonneau cover for you. Protect your truck bed and valuables with a locking truck lid. Choose from hard, soft, folding, or retractable covers. Toppers Plus has top brands including Lear, Undercover, Backflip, X-Stang, Roll and Lock, and more. Work or play, make your truck work for you. Visit our new expanded showroom at 333 North West Street or toppersplusks.com.
Make your truck work for you.
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
Pro basketball last night in the NBA. The Los Angeles Lakers win at home, beat the Memphis Grizzlies 134-107. Big game off the bench for the Lakers for former Wichita State Shocker Austin Reeves. The action from Spectrum Sportsnet.
Reeves. Lob. The jam by Hayes. On the lob by Austin. Oh, kid, that was a spectacular play.
One of 7 assists there for Reeves. He also had 16 points, a dozen rebounds, 4 for 4 from three-point range. The Lakers are now 5-0 on home court this season. JUCO volleyball action. The national tournament getting underway today in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. In the round of 16, number 1, Cowley College, undefeated at 37-0, playing at 5:30 p.m. in the round of 16. Cowley in the national tournament for the 3rd straight year in volleyball as the Tigers try to remain undefeated. I'm Ted, the Sports Head.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily here. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor with you. The IHOP hotline is open, wide open today. In fact, the IHOP hotline is 869-1240. IHOP, where guests can try the home-style turkey and stuffing melt, a deliciously comforting melt with roasted turkey, mayo, grilled onions, cornbread stuffing, mixed with berry topping, and 4-cheese blend griddled with multigrain bread and served with turkey gravy and a choice of side. Get that. Call us on the IHOP hotline. You can also leave your comments for us on our video stream, which you can find on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch. Appreciate everybody listening. Appreciate everybody watching. You know, I was trying to get Tommy to keep me up to speed on pop culture so I don't miss something. Like we did with Argentina there. We went through the entire show Monday without even mentioning it. Jad, thankfully, clued me into the red underwear story for Patrick Mahomes yesterday. But at the end of the show, I can relate to this. When I was a baseball player in high school, I wore the same socks every game, and it was pretty gross. So it got to the point, though. I think we've established that I don't know if I'm superstitious. I'm certainly stitious. If it's not super, it's close. But so it got to the point where those socks were so gross, though, that I would put other socks underneath and then put the non-change socks over the top of those socks so they weren't actually touching my skin. But I understand where Mahomes is coming from. You got a good pair of underwear. You're playing well. You win a game. I mean, you can't go away from that. I told you about my lucky betting bracelet. I can't find it, and I'm devastated.
Well,
I get it.
You also can't underestimate the power of your opponent smelling you and the competitive advantage that you gain.
There you go.
From wearing the same underwear that probably stinks or wearing the same pair of socks that definitely
He never said
stink.
he doesn't wash the underwear.
I mean,
he
you
said
can-
maybe if he has a really good game, he doesn't wash.
Right.
And listen, I get it, man. Like, I got nothing. I understand it. It's just the way it is. You can't make that change.
I mean, can you imagine, like, if you are, I'm thinking if I'm a linebacker, for example, and I'm trying to rush Patrick Mahomes, but I know that when I get to him, there's just going to be this
Catch a whiff.
whiff of like terrible body odor. I mean, think about the smell coming from the same pair of
When
underwear.
you're talking underwear, you're
every
talking more
single
than just
game.
BO.
Yeah.
Like,
bad
ain't just
stuff.
BO. That's you got all kinds of stuff going on with that business. But see, Jad, I appreciate you keeping me up to speed. I wasn't watching the Manning cast. I was not on social media, so I missed everybody reacting to it until Jad told me at the end of the show yesterday. Had no idea that happened. So, Jad, you're also responsible, by the way, and for keeping me up to speed with these types of things that don't happen while the game is actually happening that I probably am not going to know about for a while, or at least I'm way late to the party.
Jacob, I refuse to be responsible for your knowledge or lack thereof of Mahomes' undercarriage.
Why?
That isn't going to happen.
Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to pay attention to these things, no matter what it is.
I'm willing to pass the torch of keeping Jacob up to date on pop culture to Jad. If Jad wants to do it, he can have it. I don't necessarily actually, I kind of feel like, Jad, I don't want to put that on you. I feel like, Jacob, you should have personal responsibility and accountability to find your own pop culture news.
Did you know, you ever heard the term ignorance is bliss?
I have.
Ignorance is bliss a lot.
You might be the most blissful person that I know.
I choose to not know these things because I have other things that I have to try to think about. But ignorance is bliss. Like, if there's conflict around me, I'd rather just not know about it. Like, nope. Up here, everything's fine. We're just cruising right along. You guys should join me sometime. It's great. But it's fine. We will get to those things. All right. So the news of the morning here is Deshaun Watson's shoulder. We have not talked about this morning, and this just came down. He's out. He's done for the year. And I don't know how much it actually affects Cleveland, how much better he is than PJ Walker, if they need to go get somebody. I don't think he's that much better than PJ Walker at this point in his career. Cleveland is so good around him. Like, at some point, I wonder if Cleveland doesn't, even with what will probably be the worst front office move of all time, in what they gave up, what they paid him, the fact that they guaranteed all of it considered, like, it's worse than the Trey Lance decision for the Niners. Is it time for Cleveland to, like, have another quarterback there and just deal with it? You know what I mean? Does it make any sense? Like, do you, let's say Kirk Cousins is available, right, in the offseason, and you're Cleveland, and you know your team's really good. Are you really going to take this kind of roster that's really good and let Deshaun Watson be the guy? He just doesn't look very good.
I mean, Deshaun Watson is,
anyway,
he's 5-1 is the starter this year for the Browns.
I know.
So I mean, he hasn't played, like, his individual stats are not spectacular. They're not out of this world. But the Browns are winning games with him under center, right? Like, they're 1-2 in games that he hasn't played in. They're 5-1 in games that he has.
And look, I am admittedly jaded because I just think that decision and contract and was so bad that I probably do have a little bit of a bias. And he's had a couple of good games. He was efficient and pretty good against Arizona. But even in that Baltimore game, like he was sacked 4 times. He threw a pick. He wasn't even at 60% completion. Like he just is not worth what they gave up to get him and are paying him. And he misses games all the time. And so it's like, okay, what are we doing here? Like he doesn't run like he used to. He runs a little bit. He's certainly better than like replacement value. I don't know how much better he is than PJ Walker. That's sort of a tip of cap to him. But it just makes me wonder, like, should you not have a big time backup plan for this guy at this point? Like at what point? And I think all of us saw it. At least and it was like, this isn't going to work. They're not going to a Super Bowl with Deshaun Watson.
They're winning
because he's not good enough. He's hurt.
Him.
Like
they're
winning games without him.
They're 1-2 without him as the starting quarterback this year. They won
and they won the game he got hurt, right? They won the game he got hurt.
Look, I kind of have a different viewpoint on this. Even though Deshaun Watson was winning games at quarterback, the future prospects of this team, I don't think are going to be defined by who the quarterback is. Like I saw, Deshaun Watson's out for the year. PJ Walker will probably end up the starter for the remainder of the season unless they go out and get somebody else. Really, even like with or without Deshaun Watson, it's the defense. It's the way that they like Myles Garrett, I think, is basically the quarterback of the team. And so I think that did I ever think that they were a legitimate contender? No, not really. But I think that the fact that Watson is done for the year doesn't really change what their projections are moving forward. I think they can still be a fringe playoff team even without Deshaun Watson. I don't think that PJ Walker coming in really changes things all that much for them.
I don't either. That's the thing. Like, I don't like Deshaun Watson. Yeah, they're winning the games. He's got like, what does he have? I think he has 7 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. And like, he's just not that good. I'm sorry. Like, he's not the Deshaun Watson he used to be. And so if I'm Cleveland and I do have this amazing roster around him, I can't in good faith next year roll into the season without a high level backup for Deshaun Watson, or consider something crazy like, what if Kirk Cousins was this quarterback of this team? Like, how good could we be? I think they could be really good. I think they'd win a Super Bowl. I mean, I do. I think the roster is good enough everywhere else to be in that stratosphere. It's not going to work with Deshaun Watson. And season-ending shoulder surgery, we'll see. They're not, they weren't going to get there this year with Deshaun Watson. I certainly don't think they will without. But Cleveland's got to just be frustrated, right? Like you got this, just the best roster. I mean, has Cleveland in modern history had a better roster than this? I don't think that they have. Not since they left for Baltimore and came back. I don't know. It just doesn't surprise me at all, I guess, because I think he gets hurt a lot now. It's just not going to be the ticket to the Super Bowl for them.
Well, and I think that, once we get done with Deshaun Watson's career in the NFL, and we can do this now to an extent, but in retrospect, looking back on it, you're going to be hard pressed to find another contract that is as bad as the Deshaun Watson one. I mean, it's all fully guaranteed, $250 million fully guaranteed. And the fact that I think that part of the reason why it's going to be super difficult for Cleveland to move on from him is the cap hit is through the roof for him. If
I don't think they have to move on. I think you just might have to have 2 quarterbacks, and they couldn't afford him and Kirk Cousins. I'm just using Cousins as an example. That's not going to happen. But you might be able to draft somebody, right? You might be able to. I don't know. Like, I don't know what you do. I just feel bad because that roster's so good. Like, it is. And they shot their shot, and it's not going to be the right shot. And it never felt like it was going to be the right shot, and nothing has changed that it looks like it could be. I just don't see it. But it's too bad for the fans that he's out, because they just got him back, and they won another game, and they had the big comeback and all those things. And Lucy pulls the football out from underneath the Browns yet again.
We talked about it, I think, around this time last year when we were comparing a worse contract between Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson. At the time,
not even close.
At the time, I was all about Russell Wilson's contract being the worst, mainly because it was such a disaster for him with Nathaniel Hackett a year ago in Denver. And we didn't quite know. I mean, Deshaun Watson wasn't playing. The Browns signed him for all this money, but he was suspended. So I think the thought was, okay, well, if he comes out and we get the Deshaun Watson version from Houston, in Cleveland, then that contract may make a little bit of sense. A year later, Russell Wilson is playing much better in Denver. And with what we know, the way Watson has been playing in Cleveland, I mean, he's played 12 total games, and the rushing numbers are not there like they were in Houston. His touchdown to interception ratio is not great. I mean, and the fact that it's fully guaranteed, there is literally no way at this point, barring some kind of major resurgence when he comes back next year, to justify the amount of money fully guaranteed that he's getting.
It's not going to happen. It's just not. He could. I mean, you got to consider everything that was happening when they did it that makes it the worst, right? He hadn't played in like 2 years. He was dealing with all the offseason stuff. It wasn't necessary to get to that level of guaranteed money. And the picks they traded away. Like all of it combined, there's just not one that's worse. Like, and you can remember what San Francisco traded away to go get Trey Lance, but Trey Lance isn't costing them money either, right? Was it a dumb trade? Absolutely. Is it costing them money now that hurts their chances to win? It is not. And so that's where this is, no matter what happens, and I don't know the length of the deal and how many years. What does he have on it? 3 years left?
3 more.
Yeah.
And I think the bottom line, too, that makes it such a terrible contract is nobody in their right mind would ever trade for Deshaun Watson with that contract, right? There's no way. There is no way.
No.
So he's untradeable, number one. He's unreleasable, number two, because of the cap hit. You basically just have to eat that money and sit there with him right now, rehabbing, or he's going to have surgery and then rehabbing through the injury. I think the best bet for the Browns, you kind of mentioned it a few minutes ago, the best bet for them is to maybe try to draft a replacement that's not going to cost you a lot of money and then try to develop to eventually take the spot of Deshaun Watson. I mean, they're going to have to ride with PJ Walker the rest of the way. I'm not sure that, I
don't think he's terrible.
You could try to
top level. But.
I mean, we've talked about the different quarterbacks that are out there floating around. I mean, I guess you could try to convince Matt Ryan to come back. You could try to convince.
I saw that today.
Phillip Rivers. You could try to.
Matt Ryan and Phillip Rivers do not give them a better chance to win. Those guys aren't better than PJ Walker. Right. They're not. PJ Walker's better than those guys right now. Right? Like I just
Carson Wentz is off the table. He went to the Rams, so you can't sign him.
Quite simply, who would you rather have right now, Baker Mayfield or Deshaun Watson?
Baker Mayfield, 100% Baker Mayfield.
I don't think they're that far off in their ability.
It's not even a question.
Right? I think they're pretty close to the same player, except Baker Mayfield isn't costing you what Deshaun Watson cost you. And that's basically what they did, right? They kicked Baker Mayfield out the door to go do all this.
Also, don't forget, you remember who the Browns had as one of their backups in training camp? Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs was in training camp. They traded him to the Cardinals before the season. Then the Cardinals traded him to the Vikings. Yeah. Josh Dobbs was on that roster at the beginning of this season.
The Josh Dobbs story is just so good. It is so stinking good.
So who would you rather have right now, Deshaun Watson or Josh Dobbs?
Is that a real question?
Right, I know.
Josh Dobbs, like when you consider cost and everything else, it's not close. Josh Dobbs is a gamer, man. I don't want this to be like I don't have any like personal grudge against Deshaun Watson. I just like that. None of that has ever made sense to me. Like I'm just like, why? You didn't need to do what you did to get him. Like that was ridiculous and out of nowhere. And I don't want to. I wish that football players got guaranteed contracts, but they don't. And so from a business standpoint, again, it's like, what on earth were they thinking? And here we go. And he gets hurt, and who knows if he's healthy the whole way. But again, you can factor that into the decision because he was not healthy when they gave him the contract.
And you
can't say, oh, well, he just got hurt. He was already hurt.
Don't you think on top of it too? I've thought about this from the minute he signed that contract with Cleveland, he would have signed for a lot less. Like he didn't really have a choice.
He would have signed for a
less
lot
guaranteed. What for sure?
Less guaranteed.
Why in the world would you offer him fully guaranteed on a silver platter? I guarantee you he would have signed for a lot less guaranteed.
And the real irony is, a sore shoulder, a massage could probably really help.
Yikes.
Sorry. Sorry, everybody. Not that sorry, though. That wasn't bad. That wasn't good, but it wasn't bad. Deshaun Watson's out for the Browns. We'll see what happens. That's a good team. I don't know how many. I think they're still going to win games. I think they're still going to be a challenge for people. I really do feel bad for Cleveland fans because they deserve better than this, but it's the hand they're dealt.
I still think they're a fringe playoff team. Their defense is legit.
Yeah, they totally are. They
Legit.
absolutely are.
And PJ Walker, again, I think that he is capable.
He's all right.
He's capable.
Yeah.
The division is difficult, but I think that they could be a wild card if their defense continues to play the way that they have.
And their defense just gave up a bunch of points, by the way, but that was to the Ravens, and the Ravens are, they're really good. Whatever it is, Lamar Jackson's not having his best year, but they're playing, good offense collectively, or at least they're scoring a lot of points. All right, let me pull it. So you've had PJ Walker, and we should mention, Dorian Thompson Robinson, who's also started a game. PJ Walker he's been bad, Tommy. I mean, they've both been pretty bad. PJ Walker, historically, when I say he's not that bad, I mean, he's been bad for them this year. He's got 1 touchdown and 5 interceptions. So maybe we are overlooking the replacement value, and maybe Deshaun Watson is that much better for the team. I think in fairness, we probably need to admit that he is and has been better than the guys that are backing him up. But I think this is your point too, that team isn't going to be dependent on the quarterback to be as successful as it can be anyway. It's all, they're going to need to run the ball. They're going to need to play good defense, no matter who even if it was Deshaun Watson. But I mean, he was better than the guys behind him, but that's still not amazing. I'm with you though. I think this team still has a chance to make noise despite it. But it just sucks because now they for sure don't have a chance to win a Super Bowl now. Maybe they had an outside chance with Watson. Maybe Walker can find we've seen it from Walker. He's found lightning in a bottle in the past before. Who knows? But yeah, I bet they'd like to have Josh Dobbs right now.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that.
They weren't winning a Super Bowl even with Deshaun Watson. I know you said outside chance. It wasn't going to happen. So
that was not anything. I've said all year that it's a handful of teams. It's still the same old cast of characters. It's still going to be Cincinnati, Kansas City, San Francisco, or Philadelphia for me. I don't think it's going to be anybody else. I've always thought that, Buffalo played its way out. Of course, we thought Buffalo might be able to, but all the injuries, it's not. I mean, I think it's those 4 teams. Who knows? It's been a weird year in the NFL, but nothing shakes me from that yet. There's not another team that's like, oh, well, maybe. I mean, I even Dallas, I can't put Dallas there, man. Like, I can't, even though they're playing as well as they have been. I'm not going to do it. It's those 4 teams. Cleveland's not one of them, but Cleveland can win games. There's no question. They have been. They've been winning games with this quarterback mess anyway.
Yeah, I'm okay with putting Dallas in that conversation. I'm not sure that they're at the top, but I think at this point, and I know that you are a tried and true PTSD Cowboys fan. I get that.
I watched them play San Francisco.
I totally understand that. I think that they could be in the conversation when things are clicking all together for them. I think they could win a championship. I don't know if that will happen, but I'm okay with having them in the conversation.
Well, right. Could they because of who they have on the roster? Sure, they could. Can they because of who's over on the sideline? No, they cannot. That's where my PTSD comes in. 869-1240 on that IHOP hotline. Let's give away some movie tickets on the way out. Here, sneak peek, opening of the Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, Thursday night, Boulevard Theaters in Town West Square. That's tomorrow night, by the way. We'll get you a pair of tickets to go see it on us here at Sports Daily. We'll be right back. More after this. Can't get enough Chiefs coverage? Check out New Heights with Jason and Travis Kelsey, free on the Odyssey app. Follow it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. We've got Shocker men's basketball back underway tomorrow with the Myrtle Beach Invitational, which opens with a game against Coastal Carolina at 3:30 tomorrow. Coastal Carolina is not great in the Ken Palm. They're down in the 200s. But Tommy Furman and Liberty are climbing the Ken Palm quite nicely. They're both inside the top 100 now. So no matter what happens tomorrow, Wichita State should get a pretty high-quality game on Friday. And I don't know how the Sunday portion of that works. The other two teams that they could play. Let me see if I can find a bracket. So they will get a good game in the second one. The other teams in there, and who knows who they could play in that finale. But Charleston, Vermont, St. Louis, Wyoming. I have not checked their Ken Palms. I can here as we open this up. But Furman and Liberty in round 2, one way or the other, is going to be a good game.
Yeah, you've got 6 of the 8 teams in the field that they've made the NCAA tournament at least one time in the last 3 years. Charleston, Liberty, Furman, Vermont, Wichita State, and Wyoming. Now, of course, that doesn't really tell you much about this year, but at least you know that the majority of the teams in the field have at least made the big dance once in the last few years. Tells you, it should be fairly high level competition for the Shockers. It's hard to gauge, right? Like it's difficult to know exactly where they land.
I think this
early
is
on in Ken Palm. I think it's a good landing spot. I think for the Shockers to get a good idea about who they are.
So I just checked. Wyoming is the only team of the other 4 on the other side of the bracket, Charleston, Vermont, St. Louis, that's not inside the top 150. So the best game that they could get in the tournament will come against either Furman or Liberty. Now that would, let's say Wichita State lost to Coastal Carolina, and one of those teams, whoever loses that opener, that Ken Palm may drop, obviously. But right now, looking at the tournament, the best 2 Ken Palm teams are Furman and Liberty. So, Wichita State gets that shot against one of them. Now, based on Ken Palm, they should have no problem with Coastal Carolina. I haven't scouted Coastal Carolina. I don't know. And in fact, Paul Mills was asked about that yesterday, and he basically said all new players, all we really know right now is that their coach has won a lot of games, but they're like a totally new team. So who knows? And Ken Palm, look, early in the year, it's not fair to just hold everybody to Ken Palms either. They haven't played enough games to get a whole lot of data. But it is somewhat of a nice, glance at things to try to guess what these teams are going to be. I mean, I have no idea. None of us really do. We don't even know that about Wichita State, by the way, who I think is better than their Ken Palm based on what we've seen. Where they'll end up at the end of the year.
Also, don't forget that Furman upset Virginia in the NCAA tournament in the first round a year ago. So they knocked off the 4th-seeded Virginia last year in the NCAA tournament. So that tells you, I think, a little bit about the high quality of play. And I know their coach I think he was rumored for multiple openings during the offseason, that coaching carousel last year. So they do have, some high quality talent on that roster. College of Charleston and Furman, both of those teams lost to San Diego State in the tournament. Of course, we all know about San Diego State and making their run that they did in March Madness a year ago. So again, high quality opponents. I think it's a good landing spot for a holiday tournament for Wichita State, and gives them an opportunity to go and play good competition on the road early in the season. I do like that.
Yeah, it is. I was talking with Brandon Zinner in the office about this yesterday. I feel like this tournament's perfect for them and what they need right now. The Wichita State this year, between Missouri and Kansas State and Kansas, they'll have enough out there, right? And I don't know what Richmond has been doing. Richmond's inside the top 100 now too, so Richmond may give them another one even. But there's enough in this schedule, I think, to make us feel good about going into the conference. And it got me to thinking yesterday too, like, if Wichita State can just figure out a way to play Kansas and Kansas State every year, which needs to be happening anyway, and then get like one more, make sure you've got one more scheduled against a Big 12 team or an SEC team would be fine if it's Missouri. They're going to have enough in each pre-conference with as big as the league is that they'll be fine. So, when we look at that, there have been years where they didn't get enough on the schedule. There's no question about that. I want to say that this, I hope that this continues. I think that it will. I think the likelihood of them being able to play Kansas and Kansas State now has gone up. And I know they've played Kansas State quite, this will be the third year of that series. So it does matter, though, because it does allow Wichita State, hopefully, to get some more high-quality games. I don't know if, Kevin Saul and Paul Mills can get them into the bigger tournaments, these bigger preseason, not preseason, but you know what I mean, pre-conference tournaments. The Myrtle Beach is a pretty good one.
They've been in them before, haven't they? I mean, back in the Marshall era, they were playing in big time
they were
holiday tournaments.
They were. I think you got it. I think it'll take just a little bit of convincing to get them back there, but I think that they will. I think the strength of schedule, the arrow is pointed up on that for the future. But for this year, this is just the right kind of tournament for this team.
Well, and don't you think also that the importance of playing in a high-profile holiday tournament goes up because of the fact that the conference is not as strong as it had been in years past? Because you don't have Houston,
of it is there. Yeah,
and Cincinnati,
absolutely.
and all of that. So you've got to have some high-profile matchups with teams that their strength of schedule is high. And if you can't get it in conference as much, you've got to get it in the non-con. And I know that's a big reason why they're playing KU and K-State and other teams like that in the non-conference. But you've got to try to get those invites to the kind of the major holiday tournaments. That way you can have a better strength of schedule.
So just on that here, let's look this year. So Florida Atlantic is 25 right now in the KenPom. Memphis is 26. UAB sits at 82. North Texas 91. SMU 94. And then Wichita State, Tulane, and South Florida 104 through 106. So really, like when the dust, if this all held true, Wichita State would probably be in a strength of schedule issue here. Right now, it's Florida Atlantic and Memphis. Now, some of that's going to change, right, based on what everybody does. But I suspect that this year it will be top heavy, and then most of the other teams will be, down a rung, sort of all jumbled together. So, yeah, the opportunities aren't going to be tremendous. And let's see, do they play? I know they play Memphis. They play Florida Atlantic. They get Memphis twice. No, they get them both twice. Okay, so that's good. That gives you 4, right? That gives you 4. Plus, they'll have some games. They just got to win some of them. You obviously have to win them to make them count. And I think that they'll be prepared for that by the time they get into conference play. I'm really glad they have this Myrtle Beach tournament before, for instance, they go and play Missouri, right? Or whatever, because I think this will prepare them very nicely and let them continue to sort of, take those steps, hopefully up the escalator to get to the point they need to be to perhaps make a run in the conference, which is way too early for that. But look, the reality is we're going to feel a whole lot better or a whole lot worse depending on what they do in this Myrtle Beach tournament. I mean, we just are.
Yeah, and knowing that once you get done with the Myrtle Beach Invitational, the competition level really is not there for a while, at least. I mean, you've got Norfolk State in Richmond, which I know Richmond, I think you mentioned their KenPom was okay, right? But other than that,
It's not inside the top 100.
You're not really getting. You've got Missouri, you've got Kansas State, you've got Kansas. So those 3 games are paramount, at least from a competition standpoint, because other than that, you've got South Dakota State, you've got Southern Illinois, Norfolk State. Like the competition level just isn't quite there. I do like the fact, and you mentioned it, I like the fact that they're getting both Florida Atlantic and Memphis twice. And so that's gonna help a lot. And you want to win, obviously, right? But even regardless of the outcome, you're looking at, I don't know if that would be considered a quad 1 matchup. Is that a quad 1 matchup? That'd be a quad 2 matchup, I think, for both of them.
Which one?
For both Florida Atlantic and Memphis, when you're playing both of them.
Quad 1 based on where they are now. No, I think they'd both be quad 1. I think they'd both be
so
quad
regardless of outcomes of those games, you can at least right now pencil them in as quad 1. So that is going to help.
Yeah, they would be because your home games, if they're ranked inside the top 30, qualify as quad 1.
Okay, good. So there are some opportunities there, I think, to get your strength of schedule higher up, because like you just mentioned, that's going to be, you would think, the major issue come tournament time is, what does that strength of schedule look like for Wichita State?
As it looks right now, right? And I think a lot of this will hold true. They'll have those 4 games against quad ones. I think K-State and Kansas are likely to stay as quad 1 games. I don't know about Missouri. Where is Missouri right now?
I think Missouri
I haven't looked into Missouri. 62.
Yeah,
they'd have to do some things to make that one a quad 1. So I mean, you're going to get about maybe 6 quad 1 games. You got to make them count. You got to win some of those if you want an at-large bid in the tournament. That seems unlikely, and of course, teams could play their way into the quad 1, but it's probably going to be need to win to get in kind of a situation, which is what we knew anyway, right? I don't know that really matters at this point, but you do want to see him perform well, and I think that these games this week at the Myrtle Beach are going to be really nice preparers for what's to come with those big ones against Kansas and Kansas State. You'll, of course, hear those games over on KYIN, which, again, the first one is tomorrow against Coastal Carolina at 3:30, and then it depends. The next one could be either at where we are on the bracket. So it'll either be at late at 8 o'clock. So you'll either be at 5:30 or 8 on Friday, depending on how they do in that first game. And then they'll skip Saturday. So they don't play Saturday, and they play again on Sunday, and the range of times that they could play on Sundays all over the map. So there's that. That's coming. Paul Mills talked about it yesterday. You kind of fly into these kinds of tournaments with an unknown. It's not like you have a lot of tape. All these teams across college basketball are new. That's what's so crazy, right? It's hard to scout teams right now. There's not a lot there for you. So that could be an advantage or it could be a disadvantage. I don't know.
So I just looked it up. Last season, the Shockers, they played 6 quad 1 games. They lost all of them. So they were 0-6 in quad 1 games a year ago. You've got to have a better outcome than that. If you're going to play, whether it's 6 or more, I don't exactly, we won't know the number until we get there. But if it ends up being 6, you got to have a better outcome than 0-6 like you had a year ago.
I would say, like 6, 7. That's anywhere from like 5 to 7 is probably where that'll end up. All right, 869-1240. The IHOP hotline is open the rest of the way. It's Albracht and Castor at Sports Daily. Congratulations to all our contest winners. We will continue with the contest. Well, we'll just keep going with them. We'll always try to give something away here on the program, so always make sure you're listening to us for your chance to win. We're going to come back, last full segment here on Sports Daily right after this.
All right, let's do this thing. Go!
Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Glad to be with you, Albracht and Castor. There were big college basketball games all over the map last night. I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of them. I did watch, obviously, the Kansas-Kentucky game, which we've talked about, and we can revisit here in a second if you're just joining us. But what a great time to get just an unreal, variety of games to take everywhere with us. And Tommy, like that, it just doesn't get any better this time of year. Duke beats Michigan State. Florida Atlantic, by the way, played yesterday. They looked really good. Marquette, Illinois. That was the other one. That was the other big one. Marquette won by 7 at Illinois. That was a true roadie for Marquette. SMU was in there. Oh, Creighton, Iowa. Creighton takes care of Iowa. No surprise there. USC lost to UC Irvine, Tommy. That was the one that really, and that was a late one, so you may have missed it. But USC lost after what we saw against Kansas State. That really surprises me. Maybe UC Irvine's good. I don't know, but UC Irvine has a loss this year. So that one was probably the most surprising. Kansas was the biggest winner last night, I would think. Maybe Marquette. I'm not sure. But it was a great night of college basketball.
Yeah, Marquette looked really impressive. And what Shaka Smart has done with that program is awesome. I mean, they're going to find themselves probably, I mean, they're already a top 10 team, right? They're a top 5 team.
Yeah,
they're number 4 in the country. They're going to find themselves, one of the top teams in the country. They already are. And that's a big, gritty win for them to go into Champaign and get a win against Brad Underwood's team in Illinois. I was really impressed with the way Duke played. Michigan State struggled, as we know, earlier in the year. They lost. That's what they do. But that's a high profile win in the opening game of the Champions Classic for Duke. Kyle Filipowski played really well, as he's done. So we're getting into that time where you've got really big time college basketball early season matchups. I don't know about you. There might not be anything that I love more this time of year than holiday basketball tournaments. I love bowl season. Like, that's kind of a close second, I think, once we get into that world.
I'd put holiday basketball tournaments
the Maui
way ahead of bowl
Invitational and
season.
the Battle for Atlantis and like all of
You
these
really
other
like bowl season?
I like bowl season, but I like the holiday basketball tournaments more.
I do too. Way more. They have my interest way more. The only thing that gets me excited about a bowl game is if it's Kansas or Kansas State anymore.
Really? That's it?
Other than the CFP?
I mean, I'll
Absolutely.
sit down and watch the Mayo Bowl,
Nope.
on a Wednesday at
Nope.
11 o'clock in the morning.
I will not. I
love
mean,
it.
it might be on in the background, but when they're not playing for anything, it's an exhibition game. It might as well be a preseason scrimmage. Like, it doesn't mean anything.
Really? You think so?
Yeah, I always have. Now, certain teams
No,
get up
come
for it
on.
and certain teams don't. I have an interest in if Kansas or Kansas State plays because we follow those teams, but I don't have an interest if the season's over and Arkansas laces it up against Baylor. I mean, Baylor's a bad example this year, but if Arkansas and, Arizona play in whatever bowl and it's not for the CFP, there's about a 0% chance I'm tuning into that game. I can't bet it. I can't bet it because I don't know if these teams are actually going to try hard. It means nothing. This is why I've always pushed for expanded playoffs, right? It makes more bowl games matter. You just expand it now to bowl games that are interesting.
I mean, you're telling
me
you're legitimately telling me you're not excited for the Tony the Tiger Bowl?
I'm not. I make people this promise all the time. I'm never going to pretend I'm excited about or interested in something that I'm not. I know a lot of people like to say that, oh, it's Maction. It's just the best thing ever. I don't think I've ever watched a Maction game, Tommy. Like, I've never sat down on what is it, a Tuesday night and watched Mac football.
You're not going to get into it for the Gasparilla Bowl.
I don't care what the name of the bowl is. If it just depends on the teams. And if it's not Kansas or Kansas State, there are occasionally games that I think are interesting matchups that would get me in. Most of the time, they must feature a Big 12 team. And usually it would be like the Big 12 taking a shot at a big-time SEC team. Like if this year, well, Kansas and Kansas State are trying to think it. So let's say Oklahoma and Texas get through, and it's Oklahoma State versus LSU. That might get my interest. I might tune in for that, right? Because I like to see the Big 12 go up against the big boys. But it takes a lot, and it depends on when it is. And I'd much rather watch college basketball holiday tournaments because those games actually do mean something. And my problem with bowls, I love the fanfare of them. I love the events for the fans. I'm not anti-bowl game. I'm just anti-caring about bowl game like on TV, right? Because again, you can't really bet them. That's a dangerous proposition to try and bet them. So that can get us into games we're not normally into sometimes. But it's just that they're not playing for anything. To me, it's a total exhibition. Like it's no different than a preseason game.
No, that there is added stakes to it for sure. I mean,
What are the stakes?
Okay, so I followed KU my entire life, and it'd been 15 years since they had made it to a bowl game.
That's a different situation. You're a KU fan.
But what I'm saying is that there are clearly stakes because, like, what's the point of becoming bowl eligible if the game doesn't matter?
But maybe the stakes for KU are much bigger than they are for a team that
I'm
is
saying
in that
in
game
general,
because
I'm
they
just
were
saying in general.
disappointed.
Like that's a measuring stick for teams, whether or not
I'm not against the bowl system. I think it's fine. I just think like the sport would be better with more postseason games that mean something.
No, I agree with
you. KU fans, making a bowl game's a tremendous honor. And that goes across the board.
I can't tell you the
fans.
number of years that I was watching the freaking Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. And
that's where we're different.
It doesn't matter what the teams are. I remember thinking like, man, it'd be great if my team was in one of these.
Does. And I think that's the difference. To me, it does matter who the teams are. To you, it doesn't as much. I will absolutely lock into and be on board with everything about whatever bowl game Kansas and Kansas State play in because I care about those teams. Then obviously there's the CFP. Of course, we're all into that because they're playing for something. It's the games that feature teams I don't care about that I'm not going to watch because I don't know what the point of watching is other than it just happens to be on, which sometimes is a good enough reason to watch. Don't get me wrong, but I would rather go find a college basketball game that time of year. There's no question.
I am looking forward, though, and I mentioned this before. I'm looking forward to the holiday tournaments. I love the Battle for Atlantis. That's just they make it a spectacle. The Maui Invitational is always fun when they've had Bill Walton on the call with the Hawaiian shirts and all of that. Like college basketball does it right for the early season and in season tournaments.
I agree. And those games do mean something. They do. Like, are the teams as good as they're going to be late? No, but they absolutely count toward resumes trying to get to the tournament. And for some teams, like that's all you've got. Like, if Wichita State's playing in a really good early season tournament, sometimes like that's going to be the thing that gets you into the NCAA tournament if you don't win your conference. And, we'll see ultimately what this version of the American Athletic Conference looks like, but I don't think there are going to be very many years where it's more than a one-bid league. Maybe there are years where it can be a two-bid league. If it will vary a little bit, but the law of averages, I don't think it's going to be a lot. So these early season tournaments for a lot of the teams that play in them mean everything. On the other side, whatever happens at the Maui Invitational will not impact Kansas's a lot in the NCAA tournament. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament. So for them, it's a totally different thing. You're just trying to play the best you can play to get ready for the postseason you already know is going to be there. So each reason is a great reason for those games to mean a lot.
And incredibly high-profile programs are playing against. I don't remember a year where the Maui Invitational has been
this is
so
as good a draw
loaded.
the Maui's ever had.
It's usually pretty good, but this is incredible.
Can we get Hunter Dickinson versus Zach Edey, please? Can we get the Kansas-Purdue game? I need to see that. That is old school basketball at its finest. 869-1240 is the IOP hotline. We'll come back. We'll tell you what's on the network today here as we roll forward with Sports Daily. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today, both listening, watching. Congratulations to our contest winners. Jim Rome from 11 to 2, Bob and Jeff 2 to 4. Zach Gelb then takes you until 6:15 when we begin coverage of the Shocker women tonight at Belmont. You can hear it right here on KFH. Coming up tomorrow, our K-State insider, Tim Fitzgerald. We should be revisited by our betting insider, Chelsea Messenger, as well. Plenty to come on a Thursday edition. Tommy, enjoy the day.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Thanks to Jad for keeping the ship going in the right direction. I'm Jacob. We'll see you tomorrow.